I am your most humble of hosts, the Armed Catholic Rick Barrett, and I'm joined by this wonderful panel, as always. We got Stephen Cunningham from Sensus Fidelium and Spiritus TV. We want to make sure we get that correct. We have Fwaz, Fwaz Yazi, who is already has probably more people than have watched my getting to know you interview, waiting for Monday's show with Dr. Taylor Marshall. I can't wait. I'm actually waiting for it too. It's going to be a lot of fun, but that's a big, it's going to be an awesome time. So I hope you subscribe to his YouTube channel, Enoch, and follow all his great interviews. And we are really lucky. We got our good friend Jonathan Arrington live on the road, hanging out with us today. He's going to be joining us for a little bit. And so, gentlemen, it's always a pleasure to be hanging out with you guys. And we have, that's right, more have already seen the thumbnail of Marshall's video than actually have seen mine. So, and you know what? Somebody's got to be the foundation, baby. And that man is me. So that is okay. Anyway, who cares about me? Let's get into our first story, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, it seems, as you saw, the doomsday clock was moved to 90 seconds because everybody's freaking out about this, that, and the other thing. Well, it doesn't help that now Zelensky's gotten what he wants as far as tanks. He wanted tanks for the longest time. And that wasn't enough because now they want F-16s. They want them F-16s after they got those tanks. Let's take a listen to the video of your president, ladies and gentlemen, telling you about the noble war in the Ukraine.
Announcing that the United States will be sending 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine, the equivalent of 1 Ukrainian battalion. Secretary Austin has recommended this step because it will enhance the Ukraine's capacity to defend its territory and achieve its strategic objectives. The Abrams tanks are the most capable tanks in the world. They're also extremely complex to operate and maintain. So we're also giving Ukraine the parts and equipment necessary to effectively sustain these tanks on the battlefield. And we'll begin to train the Ukrainian troops on these issues of sustainment, logistics, and maintenance as soon as possible. Delivering these tanks to the field is going to take time. Time that we'll use to make sure the Ukrainians are fully prepared to integrate the Abrams tanks into their defenses. We're also closely coordinated this announcement with our allies. The American contribution will be joined by an additional announcement, including that will be ready, available, and more easily integrated for use in the battlefield.
So I've said already in the last days, yes, we have to do more to defend Ukraine. Yes, we have to do more also on tanks. But the most important and the crucial part is that we do it together and that we do not do the blame game in Europe, because we are fighting a war against Russia and not against each other.
Es gibt in diesem Land viele Bürgerinnen und Bürger, die sich Sorgen machen, auch angesichts einer solchen Entscheidung und angesichts der Dimensionen, die diese Waffe mit sich bringt. Und deshalb möchte ich diesen Bürgerinnen und Bürgern hier und an dieser Stelle sagen: Vertrauen Sie mir, vertrauen Sie der Bundesregierung. Wir werden weiter, weil wir international abgestimmt handeln, sicherstellen, dass diese Unterstützung möglich ist, ohne dass die Risiken für unser Land darüber in eine falsche Richtung wachsen.
I'm sure everybody got that.
I did. Every single word, man. I knew every single thing they're talking about. But yeah, the push for, I guess the cat's out of the bag. We're just, full on straight going for warfare. We might as well just not even hide it anymore. And Fawaz, it's very much a testament to these people and their lust for power, all sides, whether it's our favorite tight wearing t-shirt leader, Zelensky. He's just a puppet. We all get that. But you got Biden and the military industrial complex pushing for this because they need to have a war because this stuff needs to get used. Also, you have Putin on that side. I don't know how confirmed this is, but he's apparently looking to buy all the stuff we left in Afghanistan from the Afghanis now. So stuff's just being blown up all over the place, and just a total disregard for life and greed is on display right now. Flaws.
Yeah, again, it's good to be with you guys again. I always have a blast. You know, I'll talk about a Catholic response to this in just a minute, but when we're looking at the whole totality of it, you always have to go back to the root of the issue here. When I try to deal with my own vices, I try to go back to look at the predominant vice, which normally is the capital vice, and there's daughters of vices that fall under it. But for me, it's the capital vice, and if I can uproot that, if I can eradicate that, the daughters will just naturally fall off, which we call it daughters. St. Thomas called it daughters of vices. And we're looking at all of these key players in this calamity. Starting going back to 2020, I guess you would say, we had just one series of events after another that just gave the elite more power, those who are on top more money. We saw what happened in 2020. When it comes to Ukraine, we all know for a fact you got your key players, you got this war, this manufactured war, I guess you could say, and you got people who are saying, "I don't, I don't, we don't want to get involved, but we're going to get involved by not getting involved," and that's the wonderful country which we're in. But if you go back, I think the root of all of this, we all know for a fact, is also it's a spiritual battle, not so much a physical one. And the reason I say this is because something is brewing, and I think everybody in their gut can kind of tell something is brewing. You've got people, I think when 2020 hit, everybody ran off to get more guns. People started buying farms, homes, chickens, eggs, beef. I did, because a lot of us saw that this entire fake world that we've been living in for such a long time is kind of coming to its not so much to its end, but there's a potentiality that the infrastructure that we've built in order for us to live in this modern society, it's crumbling. So as Catholics, this is simple. You go back to the devil's behind this. Ultimately, you might have his minions. You've got people who, the exorcists will call perfectly possessed. And those are the folks who always do the will of the devil in every action that they do, because they've subjected their will to that. And either he's trying to cause as much destruction as possible, and this is God's way of allowing these things to happen for our own good. God allows demons to tempt us and to cause world calamities because it is for our own good. And since God has decreed all of this since the beginning of time, he knew this was going to happen before then. So therefore, this is why all of this stuff is happening, because he's allowed it. So for me, if you really want to look at the entirety of it, we could go and critique Zelensky and Putin and Biden and all these folks, and which rightfully so, because they're really just falling into the plan here, unfortunately. But ultimately, we need more beads going through our fingers versus typing on Twitter or social media talking about, here's what we need to do, here's a strategy, because ultimately it's the enemy who wants total destruction, division, where God is the one who's really always calls for peace. Now, peace will come, but it might come at a price. So I will say this: what is the Catholic response to all of this? It's always going to be peace. It's very difficult for you to find a just war, especially nowadays. We're supposed to be civilized. So it's difficult. And I really wish, and you got these tanks heading over to Ukraine, which is a possibility that the Russians could take over and then take a look at these tanks and then create their own off of our own weaponry. So you run that risk, and then the U.S. puts itself at a risk, and so does NATO and all of these things. So, ultimately, I think we need more people to pray versus try to come up with these strategic battles, unfortunately.
Very well said, Fawaz. And so, Steve, little not shocking in the fact that Zelensky has finally gotten his tanks, that he's finally gotten the weaponry, and it doesn't shock me like the little greedy pig he is that he wants more. It's just the idea here that we have this war that is being used to cover for all the other issues that we've been dealing with, supply chain issues, energy shortage issues, all of these other things. War is always a great way to reset, as emphasis added, any kind of agenda.
We like war. We like war. We're a warlike people. We like war because we're good at it. You know why we're good at it? Because we get a lot of practice.
I couldn't help myself with Carlin on that.
Greatest skit ever.
Yeah, it is. I had to stop it before it got any language that we can't show on. This is a family-rated program. There's a lot more going on. I mean, obviously we know this, and I mean, I don't know if you saw this link. Your tax dollars at work. Ukrainian officials blew $100 billion in U.S. uniparty dollars on sports cars, mansions, luxury vacations, all of 9 yards. In other news, a Russian warship with nuclear-capable hypersonic missiles nearly in strike range of U.S., which I don't know how that is nearly within strike range. I thought those things could be shot from, I don't know, the moon and be within range to us. And I remember when I lived in Charleston, there was always a Russian sub that was off the coast. At least that's what they were saying. But I mean, I don't know if you guys know what that hypersonic missile is, but that thing is one of those that we have no defense to. They will get launched and pretty much bye-bye. So if anybody in Russia is watching, just look at DC and look at Pelosi's place, and that's really bad. The rest of us, we could care less about what's going on. I have no skin in this thing. I think I don't like DC as much as y'all don't. So turn them that way. Yeah, what Biden did or Brandon did is basically just pretty much openly declared that we're at war. There was no congressional vote on that. There was nothing outside of, declaration of war. We're instead of a proxy game, which we've been in a proxy war since this thing started, almost a year now. I think we're at month 10. Yep. And, if Russia really wanted to end this thing, I'm really sure this other guys like Scott Ritter have said they could have ended it in weeks, but they haven't. Again, it goes into the why. Why haven't they? What's really going on both ends? Obviously, war is good for both parties in this. There's no good guy, bad guy in this. Fawaz brought up about the whole thing about war, no just war. I remember reading in the was it the Philokalia or one of them about how really all wars are pretty much should be condemned because of obviously the thought of the Prince of Peace. Yes, if someone's attacking you, you have the right to defend yourself. But stuff like this, there's no justification on either end on this. And it's just like if Lincoln. There was a guy that came out the other day that talked about how the U.S. needed all these things to get in all these wars. I'll pull the clip up if I can find it. I got it on a Clown Planet a couple weeks ago. It even brought up Lincoln needed needed South Carolina to retaliate because they did whatever South Carolina said, do not do. Lincoln said, do it, just to push their buttons, just like how we did with Japan and getting into Vietnam and all the other ones. We had to wait for something to go on, a provocation to happen so that we could get in. Same thing's going on in Ukraine. They said, don't do this. And they pretty much told us, all right, it's like that whole thing with the kids, not touching you, not touching you, not touching you. And you slap back. It's the second punch that gets hit all the time, or you can't do that. Just like on a field, someone pushes the offensive lineman, the other guy comes over and they decks him. It's the other guy that gets the flag, not the guy that strikes, that does first, that's provoking everything. So Ukraine and with everybody else has been provoking for years. And the whole NATO thing, NATO evil beyond evil. UN, get the U.S. out of UN, get out of the U.S. And when you get out of the U.S., don't get into UN. But yeah, it's all about money. It's all about, as you said, resetting. Hint, hint. The phrase that pays. Everything's being reset. There's a reason why this little dot on the globe is somehow causing all this insanity across the globe as well. Food, resources. You're telling me something. How big is that thing? It's smaller in Texas. Maybe a Carolina size. You're telling me that size of a country is going to do that world global wide thing, just everything's losing its mind. There's, just like I said on the last show, or maybe Clown, that there's a reason why every country is doing the exact same thing from the exact same playbook at the exact same time. There's unity for sure, and it's not the good unity, and they're all going after us. As one guy said, yeah, we're in World War III right now, but it's not what you think. It's the government at war with you, the citizens. It's not a war between Russia and the United States or the Allies or whatever. It's a war between the governments and you, because Russia's doing the same thing that the other WEF guys are. They're just as bad at the digital currency, just as bad at digital IDs. They're just as bad at all the WEF ideas. They had that thing. They kicked them out of WEF. Just like another story we're talking about. They can report anything. Hey, we're going to, just like Corbett has a thing on green tech, how the big oil conquered the world. And they made a commitment with the oil companies, say, we will make you guys richer beyond belief, but we're going to make you the villain right now, even though those same oil companies are in on the Green New Deal and all that. The guy from BP, we want 2030, we want 2050, net zero, all this. We want to get off of renewables, all that. Those guys are in on it. But on TV, they're going to say, oh, yeah, just like with Trump and what's her face, Hill Dog. Lock her up after he wins or is selected. Hey, I want to thank my great friends over there, Hillary and Bill Clinton, at the inauguration breakfast. It's all a show. It's all a game. You're not involved. You're not part of it. It's one big party, and you ain't in it either. It's an open conspiracy, and it's one of those things that, hey, just the doomsday clock and all that, that's just more fear. That they've always had that doomsday clock. That's why what's his face had a I can't remember that one website that does all the spoof videos that go hey, yeah,
Babylon B.
Yeah, Babylon B said doomsday is brought up because of daylight savings time. We're all dead.
That's true. The Russians have been saying we're in actual world war for weeks now. Their propaganda machine has been saying that we're actually in your prototypical world war. So it's really just kind of a confirmation at this point. And with the tanks, which is, as Steve just said, the poking and prodding, we said, oh, well, we'll give you arms and bullets, but we won't give you tanks because that's a red line. And then, Zelensky stomped his feet and, pouted a little bit more. All right, fine. We'll give you tanks. Now you should listen to the defense ministers or the representatives. They're saying we got the bullets. They said they wouldn't. They said they wouldn't give us tanks. Now they're giving us tanks. They'll give us the planes. We're getting the planes. We will end up having them. So it's really just a matter of time before they get them, and it escalates even further. Because what's better than having a war is having a total destruction, because then guess what? That's more jobs. That's more money that can be made in the rebuilding of the Ukraine or anybody else as well. All of this stuff is just a pay for play, if you will, for the elites, and another way for them to generate wealth beyond their wildest dreams at the expense of people like all of us and you listening at home.
Here's a website from Russia. I don't know if you guys know of Gilbert Doctorow, whatever how you pronounce his last name. He mentions the program in question is the latest installment of The Great Game, a high-level talk show moderated by this guy, grandson of communist leader Molotov, longtime head of Russian World. And he's in Russia talking about this, a state-funded organization to support Russian culture and the diaspora abroad. He is today deputy chair of the Committee on International Affairs in the State Duma. The program focused on the announcement coming from the U.S. and from Germany with regard to dispatch of Abrams and Leopard 2 main battle tanks to Ukraine. Nikolov put up on the screen extensive video clips from the speeches by Biden, by Schultz, and other Western television commentators about the decision to send these most modern offensive weapons to Kiev. He also presented a remarkable minute of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe session in Strasbourg, during which Minister of Foreign Affairs Analog Berber says we are at war with Russia. So that's what Rick just got done mentioning about that. So, but you can read more about it. We'll put it in the show notes. You read both sides. You guarantee you're not watching that on Fox or MSNBC.
Nope. It's all about the innocent people of Ukraine standing tall against the big Russian bear, even though they're just being used essentially as a staging ground for the Germans, who are now giving tanks and all this other stuff. And it's just an absolute. The thing is that Americans are so busy with like $12 eggs and gasoline prices going up that nobody really cares anymore about. I mean, you do have
This guy cares.
Anthony, we love you. You have like 9 shows that you're on, so I don't know why you want to talk about being on our itty bitty show here on News from the Pew.
He wants to be everywhere. It's the Yankee attitude.
He is the king of all Catholic media. At least he's trying to be at this point. So, but that's all right. So yeah, that's unless anybody has any parting shots to talk about with the Ukraine, that there's the continued escalation. More innocent people are dying, and more people that are getting rich in this life will have to pay for it in the next. Are profiting from it. So it's just one of these things that we are continuing to watch. And you knew as soon as they pulled out of Afghanistan, it had to start somewhere else. I mean, Afghanistan was nice because they just had brown people they were blowing up, and nobody even cared on any side. Now you have Europeans, and it's a little bit different in that regard. But turning our attention to
Jonathan wants in.
Oh, he does? Good.
Yeah. I mean, my video is not working, but I had a thought about the reason why all the two apparent sides are the way they are. I mean, it's maybe a stretch, but tell me what you guys think of it as well. I mean, we know that Russia has to play some sort of role in end times events, or at least events that precede an era of peace. I would say we know that as definitively as we can outside of public revelation with what happened with Our Lady of Fatima. I mean, surely communism spread her errors. There's so many confirmations of Fatima. I feel like Russia has to be a key piece to the puzzle of what's going to happen in the not too distant future. But my thought too is that it makes sense that the other side, besides geopolitical stuff, it makes sense from a certain standpoint that Ukraine would be on the other side, because I mean, really, if you look at it, their Catholics suffered as much as anybody during the 20th century for their faith. I mean, they truly were the church of martyrs in the 20th century. I mean, as far as I can tell, numbers-wise, more so than any other, national church, any other church in a particular nation, if you will, or a particular patria. And so the thing I'm worried about is that it's going to. I mean, you all are right in that there's no true just side in this war right now, at least the way Ukraine has aligned herself with the evil powers that be. But my fear is that, basically all of the rest of the world, more or less, besides the two most apparent bad guys, China and Russia, are going to be aligned against most of the rest of the world. And, if any sort of prophecies about the conversion of China, which there are a few approved apparitions that suggest that strongly, and the conversion of Russia, if that's true, if those things come to pass in the way that just seems most, apparent to the most people's understanding, if they just end up converting to the Catholic faith, I mean, right now they truly seem to be, to most of the rest of the world, the sides of evil. If they convert, then basically you've got kind of the most converted nations against the rest of the world that has been, what would you say, apostatizing, basically. So I guess I'm a little concerned about the way things are headed, because if China and Russia do convert, as these various prophecies suggest, then we're going to be in a heap of a mess. And, there's really going to be no true good side in this war. So it reminds me a little bit of the first century AD. There was the so-called Peace of Augustus, the Pax Augustea, that happened in the Roman Empire around the time of our Lord's birth. And, we don't want another pagan peace. Our Lord said he came to bring a peace that not like the world could give, but I'm afraid of the sort of peace that might be offered to the world if there's a conversion of Russia and China. What kind of peace could the so-called Western nations now offer? I'm not sure it'd really be a peace worth embracing. But anyway, that's just kind of my thoughts about the whole, in addition to the great things you guys have already said, just my fears, I guess you'd say, the sum of my fears.
Well, I mean, come on, John. If it does happen, and then we're allowed to spread Western ideology, then hey, SSM, abortions, all that stuff, it's going to be free reign for everybody. I mean, come on, America, baby. That's what we're looking for right there. And so that's which, when I say it like that, it's like I hope nobody wins. But speaking of liberal values, or Western classical liberal values, or whatever you want to call it, looks like Steve's got one more thing we want to talk about.
Yeah, I just found this video that will probably put a bow on this topic. Hold on.
A pin, if you will.
The world want to achieve climate neutrality, if so far it hasn't even stopped the burning of entire cities in Ukraine. This is what Russia is doing with its artillery, with its missiles, with its Iranian drones. And you know that the Russian aggression was never intended to restrict itself to the Ukrainian borders. This war can go further, and it make
know when the war will end, but we have to make sure that it will end, Ukrainians win. I don't think that there's any other choice. If Russia would win the war, then we would only see decades of this kind of behavior ahead of us. I think other countries are looking very closely at what is happening now in Ukraine. And if Russia would win, then it would send a message that you can invade another country, you can attack another country, and you can gain from that. We don't know.
It's good to see the Finnish Prime Minister not hanging out in the club.
Европу против Российской империи, как Гитлер мобилизовал, захватил и поставил под ружье большинство европейских стран и бросил их против Советского Союза. Сейчас тоже Соединенные Штаты сформировали коалицию из практически всех европейцев, входящих в НАТО, да и не только входящих в НАТО, из членов Евросоюза тоже, и через Украину по доверенности ведут войну против нашей страны с той же самой задачей окончательного решения русского вопроса. Так же, как Гитлер хотел окончательно решить еврейский вопрос, сейчас, если вы почитаете западных политиков, не только из Прибалтики, из Польши, но и гораздо более вменяемых, они однозначно говорят, что Россия должна потерпеть стратегическое поражение. В некоторых изданиях политологи активно рассуждают о том, что нужно деколонизировать Россию. Опять, дескать, она слишком большая.
They don't care about other places right now. If you watch this is, I mean, the security video inside a 7-Eleven. I won't show the rest of it because it's gruesome. A dad and kid walk in a minute, and then the place explodes. So no one talks about Syria, Yugoslavia, other places being attacked right now. We're only focused on Ukraine.
Yep, and there's a reason they're trying to focus us on that. There's a reason they're trying to keep any international talk focused on that one area. It's so things like what you just said can continue. Of course, you can always mention Yemen and the atrocities that are taking place in Yemen with the United States backing the Saudis and the starving and the blockade of the Yemenis people. So it is just one of these things that we have to deal with as Americans in this time, that our government is truly evil and really, which is why you want to divorce from DC, or you want to try to get out and operate as little as possible with involvement from the feds and this entire system that we have, because the system is not built to protect you or to represent you. And we couldn't represent that any better than our next story, which is Miss Representative Nancy Mace, who has decided to tell everybody that abortion is the reason why the GOP didn't get a larger House majority. Do we have a video of Miss Nancy running her mouth?
We just turned our backs on women across the country. And that's an issue. I was raped at the age of 16. And something I've been very passionate about. I'm pro-life, but I also see that we got to find a middle ground with America. About 89% of people are in the middle, and we've got to protect women's rights and the right to life. And there's a way to work together on many of these issues. Cannabis is another one.
I don't know how you...
But cannabis is another issue. I have a bill called the States Reform Act that takes that issue and makes it in a way that's bipartisan, that Republicans and Democrats can get on.
Yeah, Mace for Con. Low country first. So Nancy Mace, or one of the many political bunnies that are out there because she has a supposed pretty face. That's the only reason she got elected. Running around giving feminist opinions and really telling you what America truly is about and what the values of these people are. And they don't represent you. They never have represented you. We're just seeing it now. But Floss, not a shock now that the midterms are over. Gas prices are going up, and politicians are kind of just revealing who they really are, and that includes our little political bunny here, Miss Nancy Mace.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think it would have mattered. I think that the majority of people in this country, and I think you could blame a little bit of Trump with this, is the fact that people just got so into politics from 2016, and Trump and the media ate it up because they got the greatest ratings they've ever had since then. And we had this great divide. It almost like this invisible line that got drawn in the sand. You had to pick. It really doesn't matter. Everybody's already made up their minds. You could release emails. You could release classified documents. You could release anything before or after the midterms. People have already made up their mind of what camp, what party they want to be a part of. The middle, what they say, the independent person is getting smaller and smaller. You've already had people who are divided, so it doesn't really make a difference if it's abortion, if it's cannabis, whatever she says. Now, what I find the problem with this is, and this is why I think, in a way, the way the Aristotle used to say that the democracy is pretty much cringe. The reason is because when you get people doped up with the dopamine effect, and you get people in their comfort zone, and you keep offering them free stuff, if you get people addicted to vice and habitual vice, and you keep promising them that if you just vote for me and I'll help you continue in this vice, we'll keep the fake democracy going. It's an illusion. And the problem that I have with what she says is what she's really saying is we should have been more open to abortion, murdering of children in the womb, call it what it is, or the recreational cannabis, which is pretty much just making people dumber. I can't find anything dumber than people who smoke weed and recreationally. I don't understand the appeal to it. All it does is it's a dopamine effect that you continue to you'll lose you weaken your will, and then your intellect goes down. It's ridiculous. And what she's really saying is, we needed to continue before the midterms. We need to continue giving people their vices so that they can vote for us, so that we can be in power to represent you. And to do what? How about you have less power? How about you leave these decisions to the family, to the local community? How about the principle of subsidiarity? So my issue with her reasoning is, number one, it doesn't work. I don't think abortion was the reason. People have already made up their minds. People have already been set up in two different camps. You're going to vote Democrat, or you're a leftist, or you're a right. That's all it is at this point. So this illusion of choice, this illusion of the independent person doesn't exist anymore. This isn't the 90s. So that's where I find flaw in her reasoning. And again, you continue like this, eventually, those who offer more dopamine are going to continue in power. And right now it's a uniparty. It's one party who are giving us the illusion of choice. We're offering dopamine to everybody on each side, and we keep blaming one another because the only way this country could possibly, and I hope it doesn't, but it's God's will, that it could end up being tearing apart. It's because the people inside of it has really shred each other into pieces, because all of us are saying, well, my dopamine is more important than yours. We don't have virtuous people. If you had virtuous people, someone like her wouldn't even be in leadership positions. She'd be making, taking care of her home and her kids. And, I don't want to sound bad over here, but she'd be making a sandwich for her husband,
Barefoot.
Barefoot. But the problem is we have this person here who can just keep on giving us dopamine. And as long as she says the right things, people are going to follow.
So, John, if you want to jump in, I'll ask you this question. And one thing that stuck out to me is when she was trying to really appeal to the left-wing audience of Bill Maher, is the idea of being able to protect women's access to health care, quote unquote, and protecting the child. That just demonstrates a lack of really any kind of, as Fawaz was saying, virtue in that regard. And really just a really low level of intellect when you try to, as the phrase goes, split the baby in half. Your thoughts, John?
Well, I think you're onto something, but I guess the only way I'd frame it different is that I think she wants us to believe she's a low-level intellect, or else she's been given a script to read that portrays that sort of stupidity. Because, I mean, obviously, as Fawaz said, well, it wouldn't work, and it wouldn't have made a difference one way or the other. But I think the root of it is it's diabolically brilliant. They want us to believe that there are these two sides that can blend together. They want us to believe that this is a sort of blue and red, Republicans and Democrats can make a nice blended purple, and we'll just all be the purple USA. You be your blue and I'll be my red, and it'll all be fine. And I mean, in certain things that can work, but on a moral question about whether or not this is the murder of a little human being who's innocent and can't defend his or herself, the only red is the question of spilt innocent blood. So I mean, they're confusing the terms here. They're making us think that this is some sort of morally neutral ground. Okay, so that it doesn't matter if you and I disagree, we can still blend together and make this purple. No, I mean, this is clearly a matter of good and evil, and so it makes a big difference about whether or not you're right or wrong on this particular question. And I would even go so far as to say that if Republicans actually had a coherent policy on abortion, then I can't say for sure that Republicans would have won this last time. But I think maybe some of those of us who decided to sit out a few of the votes would have said, you know what, I'm going all in for the Republicans this time because they finally taken a principled stand, and as it were, are worthy to be witnesses or true martyrs. The meaning of the word martyr in Greek, being a witness to the truth on this particular matter, at least life, because you can't have liberty, much less happiness, if you don't have life. And so if you're not going to sit there and defend life there in something as simple as abortion, because it's really, really simple, an innocent baby that's going to be punished for somebody else's sins. If you can't distinguish there, then, I mean, like you're both saying, there is a sense of idiocy there where it's just become, ridiculous. That's where I think the stupidity is. But they want us to, in a sense, it's kind of like the George Orwell, peace is war, war is peace. It's such a confusion of the language there about having a choice here. You think you have a choice? No, we don't have a choice when it comes to murder. It's the fifth commandment. There's no choice there. God has made the choice for us about what we can and can't do there. But they want to give us the illusion of choice there, because in effect what that does is that ends up taking all of our other choices away. Because like Fawaz has said before, I can't remember. I don't know if it's been this show or other times. When you sin, you end up putting yourself in bondage. So by making the quote unquote choice for vice here, you end up making yourself a slave in so many other arenas, And so they know what they're doing. I'd say they're giving off the aura of complete imbecility because they're diabolically brilliant, or somebody is. Whoever's orchestrating this on the human side has received from some serious intel from Screwtape and company,
Well said. Very well said in that regard, John. And as Steve was showing you the website of Representative Mace, and I made the comment that was probably the first time that woman's ever been in that kitchen, because it looks like she doesn't have any idea what she's doing in there.
I was so inspired by it. It was inspiring.
It's just one of these things where She's trying so hard to be liked by certain people, Steve, in that audience, and she's trying to be cool and all this other kind of stuff, and just 100%. She's way out on her ski. She shouldn't be talking, like John said, about any of this kind of stuff. None of this stuff should be a debate for any member of Congress.
And notice where she's from. South Carolina, blood red state. She's in Charleston. She's a representative of Charleston and Hilton Head. Charleston is the quote unquote holy city. They have a law that you can't build a building taller than the steeples there. There's like 3 or 4 cities in the union like that. I notice I keep saying union. I'm trying to get that through. Union, not country. She's in the country of South Carolina. I'm in the country of North Carolina. Fawaz is in the country of Kentucky. And, now Jonathan's
I'm
now
in the Republic of
Georgia,
Texas.
and you're in that crappy country of Texas. So don't worry about it. This thing breaks up. You're still good. It should break up. That way people get away from D.C. You're not getting controlled by a 10-mile square. As was it Mason? George Mason said, or Patrick Henry called that out. You're not going to be controlled by a 10-mile square. But now you can focus on your state capital. Because when this stuff comes down, like the 15-minute city and all this other stuff that they're pulling down, you have to have somebody in these places to stand against it. You have somebody in D.C., and that's if you're worried about what Brandon's going to do, or you're going to think DeSantis is going to stop it, you pass the hookah pipe, because Mason's trying to get the hookah pipe going a little bit stronger hookah pipe, I guess. So have her pass you the hookah pipe a little bit, and then because that's what you're smoking. But yeah, all these guys are always all about marijuana. And I mean, she's a 10th Amendment lady. She says a lot of things a lot of people will say, out of control inflation. She's obviously appealing to veterans because that's Charleston. But look, I mean, the women's rights thing, she's adamant on being for, she's for abortion. She's pushed abortion things in. So, and again, that's the holy city in South Carolina. You're not going to find this. You're not going to find something like this in Pennsylvania. If you're going to think about GOP blood red, you're thinking South Kakalaki. You're not thinking, if this is that way that South Carolina's going, look at the rest of the states. Kind of like Brian McClanahan had a video out today on, is California the way we're going as a union? Is California the way, the roadmap for what the United States is looking at? And you look at the federal leaders, quote unquote, you have Kamala, California. You have the Speaker of the House, New Yorker. It's represented by the big states. Brandon is technically, he's Pennsylvania, but I mean, he's from Delaware. Still a Yankee thing, mindset. Everything, you look at the powerhouses, California, New York. It's East Coast, West Coast type deal. But it's the same thing. It's still one party, one thing. It's not the little guy anymore. You're the little guy. You're not going to have anybody Speaker of the House from Iowa. You're not going to have, you probably will never see a president from Wyoming. So, I mean, it's going to be California, New York, the rest of the time. Is that what you want? Do you want to be lived under New York or California? That's the mindset that's in there. That's the mindset that's coming. That's the mindset that they're governing with. Here's one I saw a little bit ago. Shows that here's another GOPer. I think it's Scott.
One Republican, including me, I'm going to, would ever cut Medicare or Social Security, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure there's no cuts in Medicare or Social Security.
That's not fair. There's like a billion old people in Florida.
Yeah, and on top of that, what is Medicare and what is Social Security? Government health care, one, and Social Security is what? Is part of the 10 planks of communism, right there. Judge Napolitano had a great one long ago about was it Chile privatized Social Security, because when they got Social Security, they were banking you weren't going to live to get it back. That's why they keep raising the age rates, upward, so that you don't get that money, because it is broke. It is a Ponzi scheme. But you'll never see any GOPers have the guts to come out and say, I want to cut government health care. I want to cut government Social Security. Even though they say, I'm conservative. That's why I keep saying about all the time, if you ever see anybody say I'm conservative, say, hey, what do you think about, or I hate government health care. I hate Obamacare. I don't like, the government-run insurance. Do you have let's get rid of Medicare. Don't touch my Medicare. You'll never see anybody that's really true blue, a true red, whatever you want to call it. Whatever, true blue is just a phrase. A true conservative. You'll never see anybody say, you know what? Yeah, I don't want my Medicare anymore. One, because you paid into it. I get it. So you want something out of it. But
I mean, you're not technically paying into it anymore.
Yeah, they get you with the cash, they get you with the money, think it's coming free, and all of a sudden you feel like, wait a minute. If you're in the healthcare industry, I was in it, and I was an assistant sales rep, and I saw this stuff coming down when Obama was in there. I almost said Biden. Biden's Biden. And you saw us, and you go, who's control who? Government. Medicare controls what the insurance companies do. If you don't like the insurance companies, it's because of Medicare. They dictate to the insurance companies what happens, what they can charge, everything about it under the sun. It's government that says that you can't buy a Tennessee healthcare or North Carolina healthcare when you're in South Carolina. That's all government ran, government vote, government this. You can buy insurance, car insurance, anywhere you want. Health insurance, that's the whole thing when they say healthcare should be free. No, they're talking about health insurance. Healthcare, you can get healthcare anywhere you want. And it's up to the doc and you to negotiate all this. Health insurance is the issue in this. And on top of that, everything's government ran, and no one wants to get off the government teat. Again, McClain had a video talking about secession. He goes, modern people do not have the mindset to be able to do that. It's kind of like that phrase about what's his face that was in the Nazi concentration camp, wrote "Small is Beautiful." And people love the word freedom. They like the sound of it. They like the ring of it. But the actual practice of it, they don't care for. And there's a lot of that we talk of bumper sticker slogans like Jonathan brought up, pray, hope, don't worry last week. We say a lot of things. We love a lot of things. But at the practice of it, we don't like to put we really don't want to do it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a pretty well-rounded way of putting that. I don't know what else to say. But yeah, that Mace is just one of those people they put on for obvious reasons. If you put on a representative from Idaho or Montana or pick Utah, Colorado, they'll all say the same thing in one way or another. And so it really is just another example of a bloated central government that everybody is just trying to get their grubby hands on because we've been trained to look for it. And so that's what we have to deal with. And these are the people, this as another Carlin clip, this is the best we can do. This is the best we can do. Garbage in, garbage out. And term limits aren't going to make a difference because they're coming from, and I'm just quoting Carlin, American cities, American schools, American communities, all of this. Oh, we'll get Nancy Mace out. You get another little pretty little thing from South Carolina who just says it in a nicer way that you will be a little bit more fooled with. And so that's kind of what we're looking at in that regard. But moving on to our next, speaking of people who say dumb things, Joe Scarborough decided that he wanted to talk about how many jabs he's gotten. And if only he got one more jab, he wouldn't have gotten COVID as bad as he did.
I had not gotten my COVID booster.
Mm-hmm. Which one? The fourth?
The fourth, yeah. Because, we went to London, then got COVID.
Yeah.
Got completely knocked down for a while.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Months.
Exactly. Well, I wouldn't say months.
You were knocked down for months.
Months?
Yes.
Dude, you're getting into an argument with your wife.
No, it was a long time.
So anyway, weeks. TJ just weeks. And it was weeks. I was fatigued for a long time.
It took 3 months.
I'll say it's very interesting, though. Because we're learning a lot more about what your resistance to COVID may be.
Yeah.
What was that? Back in September, just got my checkup, and the antibodies are like at 100% right now.
Interesting.
So for it kind of works out. But again, we found out the boosters, the vaccines, they don't stop the disease, but they certainly do make a big impact. Instead of me being down for a month with fatigue, if I'd taken the booster, I would have probably sneezed and said, what was that? And kept going.
Exactly.
That's the difference. And so I love when people go, oh, I'm not going to accuse the difference. So you still get COVID. If
I
you
know.
Get that. No, that's not the purpose of it. That's never been the purpose of the flu shot. It's so it builds up your resistance, just like actually getting COVID builds up your resistance.
Exactly.
So
keep you from
that's what they sell it on.
So do yourself a favor, right? and get off the websites that Chinese religious cults are putting as a front so they can get a stronghold in America and in your mind, and get yourself a booster shot.
It's important.
You'll be glad you did.
One more.
Yeah, because it
and I
worked out
lead a
super
Chinese
well.
cultist religion website.
I think he sounds like he's still on the COVID wackiness right there, talking about Chinese whatever religious cult sites.
Apparently, we're all Chinese religious cultist websites. Enoch his CDs are in Chinese. I didn't know this.
Well, that's why he's Mr. Worldwide. He's real Mr. Worldwide. But the idea
walking into a Chinese restaurant, ding dong, ding dong.
Did you order duck?
Oh, well done, Steve. Well done, buddy. Thank you for proving everybody how culturally enriched the people of South Carolina truly are.
We just lost Cardinal Zen as a viewer now.
Well said, John. Well said. But
you want to make sure you go to a good Chinese restaurant. You got that playing in the background.
Okay. I guess I'm gonna have to get Chinese food tonight. That's I guess that's the only thing I'm gonna take out of this one. But let's take a look at the fact that no matter what, there will never be anything that will break the COVIDians of their love of the booster. And the fact of the matter is, even if he got a booster, these things don't last, obviously, as long as they're supposed to. So he could get 900 different boosters, but it's just not going to work. But the dedication flaws, everybody's got to have something. They make fun of us for our dedication to Catholicism because we're a cult or whatever the case may be. Just shows that everybody worships something.
Yeah, it's it's innate in human beings. We are instinctual to worship. This is why you leave anybody out in the, if somebody's born in the middle of nowhere, he's going to find something to worship. This is how we're wired. This goes to show you that human beings are fixed. There's a certain natural law that we operate under. You take us away from that, we're like a fish out of water. Now, in respects to the whole understanding about the jab with this gentleman, I'm going to say a few things because I don't know too much about him. He seems to me like he's a young, decently healthy individual. I would probably bet that he probably would have gotten COVID without any of the jabs, that he would have been just fine. But he has to sell the opium. He has to sell the dope, which is a bit funny to me because I remember just maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I mean, I'm not that old, but I remember about 4 years ago, the majority of Americans were anti-pharmaceutical, big pharma. All of a sudden in 2020, all the people that were anti-big pharma, all of a sudden are for big pharma. It goes to show you that you can brainwash anybody. And it was just this gigantic brainwash job that we all have to sit through. And those of us who understand how the world works, who understand that there's a greater enemy beyond just the physical human beings, we can look at it and say, wait a minute, there's something off here. So the people who are deeply rooted in the Catholic faith have a sense, because the liturgy forms the conscience. There's a community in a sense of community. So a lot of us who are going to the TLM, our conscience was formed a certain way to say, like, listen, there's a greater enemy than just what's in front of us, and we have to be careful. And I want to make this point, if you guys don't mind, just very quickly. Here's the thing that I've had the biggest problem with. Do you remember when C-19 first came along? Their biggest push was, if you don't do this, you will overwhelm the medical system, right? That was got to flatten the curve, right? That was the whole case, flatten the curve. Well, let me pin this one on them and see how they like it. For years and decades, Americans ate fast food, and we got very unhealthy. We were a very unhealthy country. And in Kentucky, as much as I love Kentucky, we're an unhealthy state. So the decision for decades to eat unhealthy and to have stress and to live in this in this system, right, for decades. That is not criticized because that was what made the medical system, overpopulated. That's what overwhelmed the medical system. It wasn't the virus. Because if a virus enters a healthy person, as we know that it is, if the whole country, if the whole world was actually healthy and living they were supposed to, eating they were supposed to, this thing would have been gone already because we would have had the resistance to it without any of the shots. But you can't bring that up. Why? Because that's the dopamine that they sell you. Have your fast food. You have the liberality. You have the freedom to have fast food every single day. But that's what overwhelmed the medical system. But if you sit there and say, I don't want the jab, I don't want the shot, now all of a sudden we're overwhelming the medical system. It doesn't make sense. Flip that back on them. So, that's been my whole thing. And I don't know this guy from Adam. I think he's been in trouble before with the law for doing something that was immoral. So I'm not going to take advice from these people, because these people are just puppets for the enemy. That's all I gotta say.
Well, the South does have a reputation for being a little bit portly around the waist, but
food,
really
though. Delicious food.
Delicious, but it's worth it. The idea, Foz brought up a great point that, as he normally does, that and I'm sure everybody's seen them somewhere on social media, the pictures in the 50s of the people at the beach. It's not a fat person there. Not that fat people didn't exist back in the day, but the prevalence of overweight people, and the more that we become industrialized, and the more we've become urbanized and subdivisioned and boxed in, and the idea of a home garden was replaced with the idea of a nice front yard, which is kind of the stupidest waste of space you could have. Instead of growing food or making something productive, it wins yard of the month from the HOA. And what do? You supplement that with food that's grown in California. If you live in Kentucky or Texas or South Carolina, your lettuce is grown in South Carolina, in California, and trucked across the country, which is why you get E. coli and stuff like that. And really, Fawaz brought up the point, and I'm going to throw this to John. Think about how spoiled Americans are. We get so upset when we can't get access to fruits or vegetables that are out of season. Like back in the day, in the winter, you weren't able to go and get strawberries if you were in certain places, because tough luck unless you saved them and grew them. Now you get mad if you can't get them or any of these other things. And there's a cost to that, and it's that dependency. But John, your thoughts on what Foz said, or I said, or just listening to Joe Scarborough preach about how his idol of vaccine could have saved him, maybe.
Well, two things. So one, what you just said.
Of course, we lost him just as he was about to compliment me, but that's. We just heard it first. John said I said something smart, so that's all right. We'll just move on to that. When he comes back in, we'll jump right back to him because he's on the road. And we love John for his dedication, man. We love it. But he'll jump back and tell me how smart I was. Steve, your thoughts to Fawaz and Joe's dedication and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's the common zombie thing right now. You have the narrative, you have to keep doing it to the end of time. Health comes through the bottle. The health doesn't come through eating right, exercising, getting vitamin D, drinking good non-poison drink water, eating non-poison foods, not, all of that jazz. I mean, there's a lady out there right now saying that, you heard the Australian clip at the beginning, too much heat, mental problems, is causing mental disorder. There's another lady saying there was a CBS. I thought I downloaded the clip. I guess I didn't. That fat people, the people who come in fat is genetic. It's not because of anything else. It's because your parents were enormous. So that means you get enormous. There's no fat gene. I mean, there might be something for lower metabolism and all this. And obviously that falls with age. And I hated nutrition when I was an exercise science major. When I was a trainer, I would tell people go see the nutritionist because I didn't want to write up a diet plan. But I mean, back in the day, like you said, people weren't fat because they were getting out more. They weren't sitting on their keister all day long. Even though some were because of different jobs, they still weren't that large because also the food wasn't processed like it is right now. The water isn't corrupted like it is right now. You have to literally go out of your way to eat and drink like people 150, 200 years ago did. Like you brought up with the food with the out of season. Yeah, shocking enough, God made it that plants, fruits, and vegetables grow during this season, this time of the season, maybe because it's good for you during this time of the season and that time of the season, and it's those minerals and vitamins are for you for those specific times of the year. So you don't need a strawberry in December. You don't need this, and you might want that during the summertime. And that's why they grow during those times. And instead of trying to control nature and switch nature and jump it, we just instead of living under God's will, basically we are God. We will eat this anytime we want. We will do this because we want it. Instead of living the season and living kind of like living the liturgical year, you're not celebrating Christmas in July. It's the same thing. You're not, all right. We're not going to have fresh strawberries in November, December. We're not going to have peaches in January. I mean, it's all living the year, living the liturgical year, living off the land, living nature's year in the sense. But no, we have to process all the food. We don't eat just chicken. We have to shove steroids in. We have to do all this other stuff. So that when girls start hitting puberty earlier and things like that, as they say, because of the steroids in the chicken or something else in the chicken or whatever they're putting in the oil and such like that, you don't get the fresh stuff. You have to either pay more, go out. That's why the poverty people living in poor areas get the McDonald's and things like that. They're all those foods are in those sections. That's why you go all the obesity rate in the low poverty, low income areas are are just so high because of, well, why? Because of X, Y, Z. And now we got to have a shot. I went to Walgreens, CVS the other day to get something for the wife, and there was a sign there saying about getting vaccines from birth literally to grave. I've been looking at it going, man, really? I mean, how bad is people we have to go through? We need a shot for everything to go, I'm scared of this, I'm scared of this, I'm scared of this, I'm scared of this, I'm scared of this. I need to inject because, again, I don't trust God made me correctly. I need to get injections for the rest of my life to fight the sniffles, to fight this, to fight this. And that idiot was talking about you weren't going to get it. That's not what they were saying. You weren't going to get it as bad. No, that's what they were saying. They were saying if you get it, as Brandon said, quote, you won't get it. All those guys, Brandon, the 12-year-old boy on MSNBC, Rachel Madcow, all those guys were all saying the same thing from with the 3x5 card and the whole thing with the flu shot. They say you get it so that you don't get it. That's literally what the sales pitch is, and it's a guess on the flu thing because so many strands they give you the one, and what was it? The percentage was 30-something% is usually the right one. So not 7 times out of 10, you're getting a shot that's not going to help you at all. But hey, you're getting it, so you're injecting your body with something you don't need to get something that's not going to do anything for you. And we just do it because we just on program. We just do it without thinking. No one ever cares to think because we got to just worry about it. And who's the new coach or how's our fantasy football team going? But you're a fanatic if you want to read, just like that article says, stop thinking, don't think, don't do your own research, just obey us. And was it Jacinta who left? Not Jacinta, Jacinda from New Zealand that just left. She actually came out saying, we are the truth. Just, but longer, this was years ago, 2 years ago. We are the truth. Listen to us. Don't listen to anybody else. We are the harbingers of truth. Do what we say, you worthless plebes. We are your daddies. You are the children. You don't know how to think. You don't know how to live. We will protect and coddle you. That's Big Daddy. That's from every government that you see out there. We will do this. What do we do for you? It's where you hear politicians. I'm going to do this for you. That's not what we want. We don't want Daddy to go up there and do this for you. Leave us alone. You protect liberty, and we will do this. Get out of our way, and people thrive. It's just like that one video Stossel had about was it recycling? Everyone does it because it's a new religion, even though it doesn't work. They come out saying 90% of it goes into the landfill anyways. But people still do it because they're told to do it, and they don't think about anything. And they actually, when they're told about, they go, "Oh well, I'm just going to keep doing it anyways." Any other walk of life, you look at the person and say, "You're an idiot." Rule number 5. But nobody. We just continue to do the same insane thing over and over and over again, and expect different results every time. Vote harder is a perfect example.
It really is a perfect.
If you don't mind, just want to say something really quickly that you reminded me of, Steve, the delayed gratification. When you're living the liturgical season, when you're living the season of how everything's supposed to grow, you want strawberries, you have to wait till when they're in season. It forces you, see, living that way forces you to build virtue because it's delayed gratification. But now you have to do it yourself. Because now you can't, you can go out and get it whenever you want. You literally have to stop yourself. So it makes it a lot more difficult. But, naturally you can just build virtue just by living the church's springtime or wintertime, whatever it may be.
Yeah. That's why there's
it's
soup.
almost like it was designed that way.
For the winter. All the other soups is a big thing in that. In the when the summer comes, you got the farmer's market. Go to the farmer's market. That's why there's no farmer's market in the winter, because nothing's growing in the winter because it's too cold. So you have other things, potatoes and things like that, soups, beer, broth that get you through. But now, like you said, we have to have it now. We have to do it our way.
Yeah, it is a prime example of Americanism at its finest. Making sure that now, of course, if you wanted to, you could always do greenhouses and stuff like that, but that's a completely different story. It's the idea of going somewhere and having somebody else do the work for you so you can just sit back and get the reward for it, which is a great way just to kind of sum up America in a nutshell. But yeah, so that's a pretty good look there, and I guess we'll take our final story. Just do a quick update on this. We talked about the Demar Hamlin story when it broke. We broke that down pretty well. There was a little bit of a strange update over the weekend during the NFL playoffs, and we'll just take a look at it, and you can decide for yourself.
Like Demar Hamlin is in the building. Yes, if they show him in the stadium in any capacity, it will blow the doors off of this place. Demar Hamlin just showed up, and it looks like his mom and his little brother is there. Oh, we love to see it. Stay tuned. It's the Bengals, Bills.
Is at the game today for this Bengals-Bills divisional matchup. The Bills safety, of course, released from hospital just a couple of weeks ago.
Is Demar Hamlin okay? He came out of hospital. He's at the game, but they're not showing his face talking. They're not.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same thing as with Joe Scarborough promoting his thing and trying to keep that message going. Very strange that they had the guy come back and they didn't go up to that box and say, "Hey, how you feeling?" or "What's going on? How's your recovery going?" Or any of this other kind of stuff. He had a gaiter up, he had sunglasses, hoodie over his eyes. I mean, for all we know, it was probably Steve that was up there at the Buffalo Bills game, doing the heart emojis and everything for that. But it's just the continued psyop of expectations, or just looking flaws at trying to keep people's attentions rooted in specific places.
Well, I got a couple of things to say about that. Thanks, Rick. Number one, I want to get this off record. I hope that's him, and I hope he's okay. I will not become the monster that the left is, because the left cheered when an unvaccinated person died of COVID, just so that they could, in their prideful, insane minds, be vindicated. I refuse to do that. I refuse to be that kind of monster. As a Catholic, I cannot do that. I hope he's okay. I will not, we cannot have this casualty fall just so we can say, "We told you so." That's not okay. So that's number one. Number two, I hope that's him. I hope he's okay. I hope his family's okay. I hope one day he'll make the biggest recovery and come back to the NFL. I have nothing but hopes for this young guy. But I will say this. The reason why I'm a little bit more cautious of whether it's him or not is because do you think that somebody who has garnered national attention and he's walking, he's running, and he's throwing at heart signs, that person doesn't get an interview? Nobody wants to talk to this person. It'll be the biggest story in the nation. You can make the ratings will go through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no sit down with him. How's it going? What did you think? Nothing. It's like let's put him up in that box, do heart signs. Like, give me a break. That's not how these things work. The media will jump to any opportunity to get someone who's garnered that much attention for ratings. But he's been left alone to heal. If he's running around, he's up there making heart signs, he can sit down for an interview and he can talk. And that's why I think there's a problem there. I'm cautious about it. But I hope it's him, and I hope he's okay. That's all I got to say. Oh, then one last thing is, but first it was the weather, then it was soccer, then football, then bacon, then eggs, and then climate change. Every excuse that they can give us of why these people are dying suddenly. This thing is getting longer than a CVS receipt. It's getting ridiculous. So
yeah, we all know how bad those are as far as receipts, and one of those organizations is trying to save the planet, yet they have a 9-foot long receipt there. I think we actually have Demar on the program, and let's go live. News from the Pew was the first to get him on the actual show. Ladies and gentlemen, Demar Hamlin, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Hey, so Demar, how are you feeling, bud?
I'm doing good. Buy my t-shirt. Send me money.
Is that all you got to say? What about the people, the legions of Buffalo Bills fans who are just so anxious to hear about, maybe getting back? Are you planning on getting back anytime soon?
We won. I think we won. Did we win?
No, you lost.
You lost. We won something else. I don't know. I'm told to say we won.
Okay.
I promise you, this is me. I'm calling other people right now to let you know that this is me. I am at the Buffalo Bills center right now working out.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to take up too much of his time. So thank you very much, Demar Hamlin, for hanging out with us. All right. Now that Demar, we want to give Demar a second to get off screen and really recover. So Steve, now that we actually were first to have Demar on any program, what do you think, buddy?
Now, I couldn't get it dark enough for it to be like this. I turned the light off. But in serious mode, I mean, it's they have to have him pedal out. I personally think that if he was alive, Buffalo wins because they have to drag out the narrative. They lost. I would have never bet they lost. When they lost, I started looking, going, how'd that happen? Because most of these games are fixed anyways.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, and then you saw these videos coming out going, man, like you said, anybody and their brother, the guy's tweeting back just every day. He's tweeting, but no one has had a video. No one's had an interview. ESPN hasn't had something. Sports Illustrated has nothing. The CBS didn't come up there and like you said in the press box. Most of the times we have like an accident or somebody like this gets hurt, they drag him on the field, maybe do the honor coin flip. You're the captain for the game, whatever. The best clip they had was him walking into a locker, walking into the suite. Which if you ever been into a suite, they're air conditioned and heated. So he's walking in looking like the Michelin Man, with just covered head to toe, can't see anything. And you see his family walking in just a jersey and long sleeve shirt, but he's looking like an Eskimo. Either you can't deal with the heat in the suite or what, throwing up the heart sign or whatever behind a blurry photo, a blurry image. So you have no idea. Wow, he's still dressed like he's about to get frostbite. It's just everyone and their brother with 2 working brain cells and there's a ton of people doing this. Is that not him? Where's his face? Show us. Come out there and do an interview and cut it off. If just like anything else, you could end this by going on an interview saying, "Hey, this is me. Thank you for everybody for all your prayers and things like this. I'm still keep pounding whatever you want to say." But he hasn't done that. Everything's radio silence. Everything's very weird. I also heard that the NFL's got a gag order. Can't prove it, but there's a hearsay that there's a gag order on the team about this. Everything's really just weird about this because if he died, that again, the vax confidence is gone. And what happened today?
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Oh,
25 years old.
They don't know why. Unknown reasons. Totally healthy. 25 years old. Highly likely, 99.9999% chance he was jabbed, dead. But
so let me ask you
it's
this,
over.
guys. Both. Let me ask you both this question. There's two scenarios that could play out with Demar. First one is he is keeping his face covered and all this stuff and not talking to anybody to bid up to jack up the bids for his first interview, to pay for a payout and so forth. Second one, going along Steve's point, if he did die tragically, then they're using that to see him and his family is now trying to jack up said price tag for them to turn for them to give their story. Either one of those seem like it could potentially be in the works.
I just think it's all about the jab confidence.
It's absolutely 100%
thing.
about
It's
that.
now weekend at Bernie's. They're not going to let anybody know that he's dead. Now that the team's gone, they can keep the narrative around. He's fine. He's doing this because just like Osama bin Laden being thrown off hey, we killed him. Here we're showing you we're throwing his body off the boat right now. Believe us, that's him. You don't have to have any other evidence. We're just going to tell you this is what happened, and you should believe us. If you ever question us, you hate kittens, you hate puppies, you don't like your grandma, you're low life, blah 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 blah. So again, it goes back to don't think, don't ask questions, just trust us, and then take the jab. Take 900 more of them.
And I think the NFL has also the NFL has legal teams and contracts to win the war in court because they're not paying this brother a penny, even in his medical, because they restructured the whole contract 3 years ago where he's not vested. I think he was like second year. He has to be in there for 4 to 5 years to be vested. He ain't getting nothing.
Yeah,
so
this is still his rookie contract.
In the courtroom, they could win. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to perceive in front of the audience that they are the good guys. They care about this brother. And I think NFL is really just trying to put out a propaganda for their own sake.
Oh yeah, we do CPR for 9 minutes. That doesn't happen. You don't do 9 minutes of CPR when you're trained in CPR. We did it all the time at the gym. You don't do it for 9 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard stories of guys doing it for 15. Well, Steve, the idea, allow me to push back on that. Your average EMT is 15 minutes away. So you're trained to do it for at least 15 or so minutes to kind of continue to do it. Now, granted,
I'll just push back on that. At a stadium, they're in the tunnel.
Oh, I'm not saying about that in specific one. I'm saying overall, people are trained to go extended periods of time, and they don't tell you real quick about CPR. It really gets weird when you start breaking the ribs because you've been doing it time and time and time again, and people ain't ready for that when you've been pounding on the heart for that.
And that was another thing. There's other guys, the hockey players, that actually had this happen to them, get hit in the chest, and they're back the next game. Okay, so what is it? You can't have it both ways here.
Nope. I completely agree in that regard. So there you go with that, ladies and gentlemen. Just another continued psyop to keep people locked in on certain narratives. So it looks like it's time to get ourselves ready for the cry room and Squaz, Saint Virtue. If you'd like to throw in a virtue, I know you're really good with that stuff. You want to get that stuff out there. Virtue and Saint of the Week in Cry Room, if you'd like. I think you might be muted.
Nice, thanks, bud. Good looking out. Yeah, I'll do a quick virtue. I'll talk more about concupiscence. The reason why the church asks us to fast isn't so much just so that we could brag about giving up coffee and taking cold showers in certain times. There are certain things that the church asks us to do, and fasting is one of them, and abstinence, because it builds up the will. And the gluttony and lust are in the same appetite, the concupiscence appetite. And when you fast, and especially with guys, lust becomes one of the biggest problems for men to try to conquer. It's something that you end up developing when you get older, and then you end up in a habitual sin that's contrary to the 6th and 9th commandment, then you get married, that doesn't go away, and then it becomes a problem with your marriage. The church really has put together for us something to where they understand the human, because the church is actually an expert in human psychology. This is why Father Ripperger wrote his book, According to Understanding of Thomistic Personhood. So in reality, if you are looking to subdue the temptation and getting rid of that problem that men deal with a lot, I would recommend rigorous fasting, because when you kill the will, it really when you kill the appetite, it really strengthens the will. So that way, when the temptation comes along, you have more tools in your bag to deal with it. Of course, you have your sacramentals, you have your sacraments, you have your prayer, mental, controlling your mental faculties through mental prayer. All of these things are going to be absolute key. But in the very basics, just the beginning of it all, it's just fasting. So fasting on a regular basis, depending on how bad your situation is, some folks can have more will than others. Putting down that food and just telling your desire, no, you're not an animal. You don't have to eat this just because your flesh said so. We have a rational soul and a rational mind. So I would say that's probably my virtue of the week is the action is to fast so that you can have the virtue of chastity. So that was my thing. The cry room. I'm going to put Father Martin on there. The people call him Slim Jim. All respect to his office. He's a priest. I'm not going to say anything bad about him publicly or say anything bad about his priesthood, because he is ordained in the church. But I will say this: the fact that Pope Francis has come out yesterday and he said that homosexuality is not a crime. Now, what the Holy Father meant about that, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. That's above my pay grade. But of course, Father Martin can't help himself. He has to run to Twitter every single time somebody says something about the community that he so longs to belong to. And he takes a lot of times. He takes what Pope Francis said. Now, Pope Francis could have meant the worst of what he said, but at the same time, he could have just meant crime, meaning that just having homosexual tendencies is not a crime, which is true, but acting on those is a sin. So Jimmy, Father Martin is going to be in my cry room, just because it's just very dishonest that you're going to take something that someone said, run with it because it approves your agenda, which is contrary to church teaching.
Well said. Steve, cry room, saint of the week. What do you got for us?
All right, I'm going with first off, before the saint of the week, another one just bit the dust.
Oh, wow. 25. That's terrible. That is absolutely awful.
They're creating their own 24 club.
Yeah.
This is what we had in the Saints.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Right. Now I'm going to go with the saint of the week. I'm going with the doctor, Dr. Kurt Moore. What he did was basically inject people with the saline solution. And well, they're going after him for years. People are going, how many lives did he killed? Because it's probably none. He probably killed nobody with it. He probably saved a bunch of lives, but they're all trying to throw him under the bus. And I think they're trying to give him multiple years, 3 or 4 years maybe in jail or something like this, plus fining him and taking his license away. So good on him for doing that, having the guts to do that. My cry room would be New York City. New York City. Yes, New York City. This just came out yesterday, the statue atop the New York City courthouse. And it's, as this guy says, it's the statue's name now, NOW, is a female figure emerging from a pink lotus. Its brand shaped the horns with a judicial lace apron. It is meant to pay homage to Darth Vader Ginsburg and her fight for abortion. So,
looking up at all of us, isn't she?
It's a hot day wherever they. That's where we got.
Yeah, what's the quote from Terminator 2? I hope she's got SPF 1 billion.
We got to pray for these people for their conversions, though. I mean, I know, joking aside, we're not doing our job enough for praying and sacrificing, as Our Lady Fatima said.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so I just sent Steve my Saint of the Week while he gets that loaded up. I'm never one for political figures, and I'm definitely not one to ever sing the praises of one Kevin McCarthy. But this speech, this reporter pushed him to the limit on this one, and his response was as epic as you're going to get. And I'll give him credit where credit's due. I mean, even a blind squirrel finds a nut. But he pretty much took her to the mat, which was
even the Inspector General said it. When Devin Nunes put out a memo, he said it was false. When we had a laptop, he used it before an election to be politics and say that it was false and said it was the Russians. When he knew differently, when a whistleblower came forward, he said he did not know the individual, even though his staff had met with him and set it up. And if you want to talk about Swalwell, let's talk about Swalwell, because you have not had the briefing that I had. I had the briefing and Nancy Pelosi had the briefing from the FBI that Eric Swalwell had a problem with the Chinese spy.
Fang Fang.
Intel. So it wasn't just us who were concerned about it. The FBI was concerned about putting a member of Congress on the Intel committee that has the rights to see things that others don't because of his knowledge and relationship with the Chinese spy. But they will not serve on a place that has national security relevance because integrity matters to me. What Adam Schiff did.
I mean, yeah. But at least I don't mind a good political speech every once in a while, so that's fine. For me, my cry room, I'm gonna have to say the Holy Father, because especially according to my apostolate, the Armed Catholic, he's coming out and saying, decrying the use of guns once again, and there's really very Pope Francis-y statement, and some of you will get that because it's just weird. It's just a weird statement where he talks about instead of length or the use of guns is becoming a habit, instead of saving lives, we're taking lives. And it's like, well, Holy Father, if somebody's trying to kill my wife and kids, I'm saving 2 lives instead of 1. And it's absolutely he was baited into it, obviously, by the AP because they know what his answer is going to be. So, of course, they had to ask him about the string of mass incidences that are taking place. And he fell right into the trap, and it's going to be used against us going forward. So, unfortunately, Pope Francis, because you got baited into that response that they wanted, you're in my cry room, and everybody can say goodbye to my beautiful real tree Fwaz. Who pointed that out last week that it was not real. As you can see, my arm disappearing. Obviously, that is not correct. Everybody say goodbye to my Christmas tree fireplace setup because next week is Candlemas and that'll be the end of Christmas tide. So everybody continue to celebrate. We're still in Christmas. But I want to thank you all for hanging out with us today on News from the Pew. As the banner says, please like, subscribe, and share the news. And we will see you next week. God bless, and now, always, and forever, Viva Cristo Rey.